Good afternoon. My name is Frank Steffen. I'm the editor of Allgemeine Zeitung, for that matter, the editor of Tourismus magazine. We're here at the Namibia Scientific Society this afternoon, so in a short while we'll start having a little conference. And this is really an initiative by Hans Seidel Foundation, and they're being supported by the Desert Research Foundation of Namibia, funded by the European Union, and we will listen to online discussion and a panel that will discuss what is sustainable forestry. You guys will remember that the press was full of various reports when, since 2018, we had quite a huge occurrence of forests being basically taken down up in the Kavango regions and Zambezi. And since then, quite a number of initiatives have been started with the support of government. And so the idea is obviously over time to see how we can best manage our forests for sustainably, especially manage our forests. So let's see where this is heading this afternoon. I hope you enjoy this live stream, and later on we'll come to a conclusion after this whole thing has ended. Thank you very much.
Afternoon. My name is Dauphine Malambo. I'm actually an independent consultant, and I have been approached by the project organizers to moderate this session. Now, this is a very interesting session because it basically has organized a panelist to share their view on the question, as many of you might have heard it with regard to what is sustainable forest management. Now, I just want to take this opportunity to acknowledge and to welcome our viewers. There are many viewers out there who are linking in and zooming in on the platform. We are also aware of some of the Facebook viewers who are also logging on, but I also want to acknowledge those who have come to join us face to face. Welcome to this session. Now, just quickly, I hope everybody has got a program in front of you, just for you to have a sense of what to expect for the afternoon. We're basically probably going to be together for an hour and a half or more, depending on how the discussions are going. But it's also important to just know that the program is being put into two sessions. We've got one session, which is almost like an official session, whereby we really just want to make sure that people feel welcome, and also people have got a bit of a sense of what is this project is all about. And then we will then delve into the panel discussion. We've got our panelists. I'm going to introduce them later, so that they can make their statement, and after their statements, then we will then invite everybody, whether you are logged on, wherever you are, whether you are sitting here, to please share with us your questions, your comments, and your contribution towards the topic on the agenda. And I would like to encourage you to really focus on the topic, because this is a very broad topic, but I think we want to eat it one bite at a time. It's almost like an elephant, and we really don't want to delve into it. This is why I'm going to be very, very strict to keep people into really interrogating the question which we want to answer during this debate. Now, before I give you all the rules in terms of like how I'm going to allow the viewers, virtual viewers, and the people face-to-face who are present here, how they are going to engage with the panelists, I'm going to do that later once we've got the formal part out of the way. Now, the formal part basically consists of a welcoming remarks from Susan. Susan is a press and information officer from the EU. And I think, as far as I've read, according to the program, they are really the main principal supporters financially of the project. And then I'm going to ask Dr. Lara Beer. She's a project management of this particular project from Hans Seidel Foundation. And she's going to basically give us it's almost like setting the skin, the whole scope, introducing what this project is all about, and also the objective of the program. Now, once we had that broader picture in terms of the context, then we will then ask our panelists to lead us into answering this question and also interrogating it, so that at least we can have a broader participation and for us to establish a common understanding what is sustainable forest management. With those few words, I would like to call Susan to take up the podium and to just welcome us officially. Thank you, Susan. You can take the podium.
Thank you, Dofi. Dr. Jonathan Kamwe from the Namibia University of Science and Technology, Mr. Joseph Ailwa, old-time friend, also from my government days, Dr. Albertina and Norma from the University of Namibia, Dr. Clemens van Dordere, head of the Hans Zeidel Foundation, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, and dear viewers. On behalf of the European Union, I'm really pleased to be part of this panel discussion on sustainable forest management. We recently launched a Euro 506,000 funded project called Promoting Sustainable Forest Management in the Kavango-Zambezi regions of Namibia to facilitate an active, multi-stakeholder dialogue on the concept of sustainable forest management and to improve the implementation thereof in the affected areas. This project idea emerged against the need to combat accelerated deforestation through the illegal and unsustainable harvesting of timber resources in the Kavango and Zambezi regions, and I think we all recall the coverage that was in the media on this topic. Now, besides the environmental damages, unsustainable logging aggravates soil degradation, and thereby rural development and food insecurity are also negatively affected. We believe that this project is timely since Namibia is just emerging out of one of the worst drought situations. We are going through an economic recession, which is compounded by the COVID-19 pandemic, and one of Namibia's strongest sectors, the tourism industry, which is really heavily dependent on community-based natural resource management activities, is still battling an uphill battle now with the impact of the pandemic. So safeguarding Namibia's natural resources can contribute to the recovery of the tourism sector. The EU is excited to be a part of this important initiative, which targets about 15 community forests in the Gaza region, nature and environmental organizations and decision makers, including ministries and local authorities. So we really need, for sustainable forest management, we need the decision makers on board, we need forestry practitioners and researchers and academia, they all need to be on board. I won't go into any details, but some of the main activities include, of course, dialogue and exchange events on sustainable forestry management, information campaigns, production of teaching materials on sustainable forest management, and the like. The aim, of course, is ultimately, I would say, to assist the affected communities to manage their resources sustainably and therefore improve their livelihoods in the long term. Future EU support to Namibia will also focus on, amongst others, inclusive green growth and sustainable land use. So this is now from 2021 to 2027. And this affirms the EU's commitment to conserving Namibia's very important natural resources. The European Union is very pleased to have the Hans Zeidel Foundation and the Desert Research Foundation of Namibia also on board, and that they've joined hands to assist us as very important implementing organizations. They're highly skilled and very well experienced in this, so we are very glad to have them on board. So I think apart from this discussion, let us keep the dialogue going on sustainable forest management and keep talking. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Susan. I think we just want to acknowledge the EU commitment to Namibia to conserve Namibia's natural resources. And I think their support to this project really means a lot. Dr. Lara will come and give us an introduction to the project, but also what are the objectives of this project.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and a warm welcome to everyone also from my side. I have the pleasure to give you a brief overview on our project, its objectives, as well as of the objectives and expectations of today's event. Today's panel discussion is hosted by the Hans Zeidel Foundation, Namibia, in partnership with the Desert Research Foundation of Namibia and the Namibia Scientific Society. As the first event in a series of upcoming public discussions, this panel discussion is a key component of the Promoting Sustainable Forest Management in the Kavango-Zambezi-Region in Namibia project, a 3-year collaborative project of the Hans Seidel Foundation and the Desert Research Foundation with funding from the European Union. We thank the EU for that. As many of you will remember, in recent years, a growing number of media reports and related public discussions have sought to address how Namibia's hardwood resources are being harvested, in many cases unsustainably. To assist in the resolution of this concerning trend, the Hans Seidel Foundation and the Desert Research Foundation have joined forces to support the Namibian government in its efforts to safeguard against the environmental and economic threats posed by unsustainable timber usage and uncontrolled deforestation. Therefore, the project aims to support an active multi-stakeholder dialogue on the concept of sustainable forest management in order to improve its implementation in the affected regions. In particular, the project aims at expanding public understanding of the concept of sustainable forest management and its benefits, at strengthening knowledge, skills, and capacities to implement sustainable forest management, and it further aims at improving sensitivity to and appreciation of diverging views and perspectives on sustainable forest management. Key strategies to achieve these goals include an information campaign and publications, conferences, educational programming, study trips, as well as public dialogue events. One of these public dialogue events is today's panel discussion. The objective of today's event is to discuss the concept of sustainable forest management and its significance to the Namibian hardwood forests. Each panelist will answer the question, which is, what is sustainable forest management? And thereafter, the floor will be open to you, dear participants, to ask questions, make remarks and comments. Given the complexity of the issue of forest management, it is envisaged to host a series of public discussions during the whole project implementation period to ensure that sufficient attention can be given to each individual topic. Therefore, today's event will particularly focus on the concept of sustainable forest management. And our next public discussion events, however, will concentrate then on the current state of forest management and possible pathways on how to improve forest management. Therefore, I would like to ask you kindly to stick to our today's topic. And I can promise you that there will be enough opportunities to discuss further key areas of forest management in our future discussion events. At this point, I would already like to ask you to participate in our short online survey at the end of this event, as we take the monitoring and evaluation of our activities very seriously to improve ourselves continuously. The link to the online survey will be shared in the chats of the Zoom and Facebook streaming towards the end of this event. If you wish to get more information on our project, please visit the website of our information campaign, the Think Namibia information campaign. The address is www.thinknamibia.org.na, and you can also find Think Namibia on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I now wish you an exciting panel discussion, and thank you.
Thank you so much. Just quickly, some of the things Clara mentioned, what is important is that the Hans Seidel Foundation, together with the DRFN, they are facilitating the implementation of the project. It's a 3-year project, and I think this activity is one of many, many series to come. So it's important for us to know that this is not only the discussion we are having. We're mentioning the word series because there's more and more specific aspect we are going to zoom in to just basically discover what is SFM. It's also important for us to understand today that we're looking at what are the significance of the valued hardwood, which we're trying to preserve in that focus area, the regions which has been mentioned, the Kavango and the Zambezi region. So our panel discussion today will really just wanting to zero on the topic of what is sustainable forest management, and then more other aspects will be then discovered as we go on. Now, just quickly for me to then introduce to you our panel discussion, our panelists. As I've already said, we've got Dr. Jonathan Kamwe. He is from NUST, the Namibia University of Science and Technology. Now, I'm hoping that Dr. Kamwe is hearing us, because he's one of the panelists who will be virtually joining us and making his statement. And then we've got Mr. Joseph Hailua. He is the director of the Directorate of Forestry, with the Ministry of Environment, Forestry and Tourism. And then we've got Dr. Albertina Ndeunoma from UNAM, University of Namibia. And then we've got Dr. Clemens Fondodere. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. He is the country representative of Hans Seidel Foundation here in Namibia. After they have made their comment. So this is the following procedure I would like us to follow. It is very important that everybody who is logging in virtually, if you have a question or a comment to make, go to your chat, is it the chat box? Go to your chat box and write your question there. I will be then taking up all those questions and then share with the panelists so they can already start looking at the questions and prepare themselves to comment. We will be kind of alternating between the virtual participants and also the face-to-face participants, so that we can give both participants equal opportunity to participate. So as the panelists are giving their statement, and we've got a point of clarification, please send it to us by just typing in on the chat box, and then we'll be able to ask them to clarify. And also, I'm not gonna be having them making a statement and coming back to you, but the statements are going to be given one after another. So as they are giving their statement, please listen carefully and make sure that you are already asking your questions. Only after their statements, we're gonna then open up the dialogue and allow people to make their contribution and their comments. I hope this is very clear. Okay, without further ado, can I just check with my technical people, do we have Dr. Kamwe logged on? He is there. Dr. Kamwe, thank you very much for joining us. I have decided to give you the first opportunity to introduce yourself more and to give us your statement. So please go ahead and welcome. Is Dr. Kamwe hearing me, you think? He should be hearing me. Say, you've got 5. Hey, welcome, good to see you. Can you hear me? Okay. We can't hear you, we can't hear him. Is there any way where we can hear him? Oh, he must unmute himself. We can't hear you, sir. Is it probably, have you mute yourself? We can't hear him. Hello? Technology. Okay. Can you hear us? Can you hear me, Dr. Kamwe? It doesn't seem that can you see me? Yeah, this is it mute? Okay. Can you? Okay, he can see me, but we can't hear him. Oh. Ah, okay, maybe this thing is far from me, that's why you can't hear me. Okay, Dr. Kamwe, thank you so much for joining us. You are part of our panelists. We would like to give you the first opportunity to give your statement, and then I'll give other panelists a chance to also give their statement. And I'm hoping that you will be with us during the whole proceeding, because we're going to have people virtually and some of the people who are present here to pose their questions and to make their comment, and you might want to respond to some of those questions and comment. Please go ahead with your statement.
Management has to keep the balance between the three main pillars. First one is the ecological one, whereby you really look at the components of the ecosystem. The second one is the economic, which looks at the benefits in terms of money, which is received from which is derived from the forest resources, as well as the socio-cultural element, which looks at the cultural values which have to be maintained for the communities who mainly reside in the specific forest area. So successfully achieving sustainable forest management will actually provide integrated benefits to all the people who are found in a specific area. And these benefits will range from safeguarding the local livelihoods to protecting biodiversity, very, very important, as well as ecosystems which are provided by forests. And in the end, you'll find that rural poverty will be reduced, and then at the same time, you'll also be able to mitigate the effects of climate change. So at an international level, we find that SFM, this Sustainable Forest Management, is a very important enabler for REDD+. REDD+ is this international mechanism under the Convention on Climate Change, which rewards people for maintaining their forest resources. So if SFM is carried out successfully, it will be a key enabler for a country like Namibia to really participate in the REDD+ mechanism. We have been making strides already, trying to see how we can prepare the country for it to benefit from this REDD+ mechanism. I think it will be one of the interesting thematic areas that we can bring in the near future to really look at how Namibia can benefit from this REDD+ mechanism. So coming back to the management of forests, you'll find that sustainable forests are not only productive in terms of the wood products that they provide, but also they are regarded as places that can be exploited for other activities like leisure, by the leisure industry, as well as the cultural activities. So sustainable forests also add in terms of the appearance or the look of the environment. At the same time, that attracts tourists, and then you find that the benefits of income which is brought by these tourists can be shared with the communities on a condition that there are specific equitable benefit sharing mechanisms which are being implemented. So you'll find that most of the people in Namibia, especially in the focal area of this project, depend on the forest for their diverse needs. Hence, we really have to make sure that we maintain these forest resources to ensure that they can use them now, and also their children and children of their children can use these resources in the future. I think I'll end here. Or do I still have time, moderator?
Yeah, we've got 2 minutes.
Okay. I think let me exhaust my remaining 2 minutes. So there are thematic elements when you're talking about sustainable forest management. These thematic elements have to be considered for you to say you are successful in terms of implementing this aspect.
Jonathan, are you still with us? Jonathan? Okay, we seems to have lost him. Yeah. Okay. Okay. We'll see whether he will come up again. We'll give him a chance as we are discussing. I think let me just go ahead and give Mr. Joseph Hailwa to give his statement. Tate Hailwa?
Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, viewers from different sides of the country, sustainable forest management is a very great concept, and it can be actually used properly, and in some cases it's somehow misused. But the most important thing is it's difficult to attain. And therefore, when I heard that together with me, I'm going to have this presentation with my colleagues, of which all of them are, they damage their head permanently. So I believe they are going to talk more, as we have heard from my son, Jonathan Kamwi. We are going to dwell more on all those theoretical parts as actually introduced by my colleague, Mr. Kamwi, or Dr. Kamwi. To say sustainability, we talk of actually of what is that you want to achieve from your forest. So therefore, what is that you want to sustain to keep on getting from a given forest? In a man-made, or these days woman-made forest, plantations, the sustainability in that plantation is not precisely the same as the same way we want to have in our natural stands. Therefore, what actually is critical to talk about sustainability in forestry, you should also know what is that you want to do. The whole idea is actually to have the multiple benefit or specific benefits from that forest now and forever, as my colleague actually has mentioned earlier on. The theory has been there for many years. Around 300 years ago, the colleagues in Germany, the foresters in Germany, a bit of in France as well, they actually try to define and systematically apply that sustainable forest practices. And since then, this has been promoted and defined and developed further up to the stage we are today. As I said that theoretical-wise, it's quite easy to talk about sustainable forest management. But the whole challenging part is how to achieve that sustainable forest management in practice. That is the most challenging part. And therefore, I want to dwell more on that direction, that what should guide you. First of all, you must have you must define what is your forest, what is your area you're talking about. And then you must set the vision, what you want to achieve at the end of the day. Then, of course, you set now milestone targets and so on, but you must now have what we call a management plan. A management plan where we have all those aspects I mentioned earlier on, and you commit yourself that I am going to do this and this and this in order for me to achieve ABC. We have heard already here that forests provide so many things: ecological services, social services, economic services. All those things, you must now include them. But to achieve all those, to make money out of the forest, at the same time you say, no, you are conserving the forest for environmental purposes. It's a challenge. And that's where is a critical part. Actually, every practitioner should think, how can we achieve, how can we combine these challenging things? So you must now come up with your objective, define your resources or describe your resources, and then come up with programs. Programs and define who are the stakeholders, the people you are saving and how much you want to save for yourself. And then you put now a principled decision, like either you're guided by the law, starting from international treaties, what the international actually force you to do as a country, and then maybe you come to the bloc, like African region or SADC region. All those people, they come up with some treaties or protocols, and all this, they are actually trying to agree to lead to sustainable forest management. And then you must now set aside some resources. Of course, you must have money to be able to implement, to enable you to enforce your principle you want to achieve. So at this point in time, I set aside, or I leave the aspect of theoretical definition and so on of sustainable forest management to my academician, but in practice, those are the challenges, and I think the question is, how should we go about to achieve the combination of all these forests, either at once or at different times? With that, I think, Madam Moderator, I try to make my contribution to this point. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hailwa. Dr. Albertina, your comment, your statement, please.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Namalambo. Thank you, viewers, participating virtually, and also those that are here present. Thank you for having me as one of the panelists. I really appreciate it. My name is Albertina De Inoma. I work with UNAM, Department of Integrated Environmental Science. It's based at the Ovongo campus in the Omsati region. Like Dr. Kamwi, I'm also professionally, I'm also a forester. I studied forestry at the BSc level, and I also did some research on forest policies, specifically looking into the policies of forest products. Okay, going into the concept of sustainable forest management, if you look around, you find there are so many definitions of sustainable forest management. FAO has a definition, the United Nations Forum in Forestry, they also have a definition. If you go into Wikipedia, you will find a definition. But if you look at these definitions, they have something in common. There are two things that sustainable forest management talks about. We want to manage our forests in a way that they are ecologically sound. We want to manage our forests in a way that they are also economically viable. And the third leg, they talk about socially acceptable or socially just. So basically, anyone defining sustainable forest management will talk about these three pillars. And the second aspect, which is also very important when we are talking about sustainable forest management, is when we are using this forest, they should provide the benefits today, but also in future. We should not use so much such that our future generation, they don't have anything to harvest from our forest. Then that does not become sustainable. So those are the two key issues we consider when we are talking about sustainable forest management. Going into the background, which also Mr. Hailwa have somehow highlighted, sustainability in forestry has started a long way back. Yeah, people were talking mainly about sustained yield, and they were focusing mainly on timber production. Okay, we want to have timber today and also in the future. But as time goes on, we have many stakeholders to the forestry, and we realize the concept of sustainable forest management need to be broadened. Yeah, it's not just about timber, but it's also about the socio-economic needs. It's also about the ecological needs, and yeah. So it had become broader so that it can serve these multiple products and services. So when we look at it, then we can say this concept is multidimensional. It looks at many things. We want to conserve biodiversity. We want the forest to regenerate itself. We don't just harvest and go, but we want to harvest, and when we leave, we know that after a certain number of years, we can come back and harvest again, depending on the rotation. We also want to protect the water, because the forests are known to be filtering the water, and also the soil, such that we don't have erosion. So these are multi-dimensional aspects of sustainable forest management, and when we look at them, it means we have many people who have different interests, and then it means with different interests, these may be competing. Someone who wants to achieve ecological benefits, maybe they are somehow overriding the livelihood benefits, for example, the social aspect. So we need to come together and see how we can achieve this sustainable forest management, so that it serves all these pillars that we are talking about, which Mr. Hailwa said it's easy when we are talking theory, but it becomes very difficult when you have to practice it on ground. So when we have to practice sustainable forest management, I hope I still have some time. Yeah, there are certain things strategies and tools that we should prioritize. We need to do inventories so that we know how much we have. We need to know how much we are harvesting, how much is going out of our country in terms of timber logging, for example. Yeah, so We need to do monitoring, and the other aspect which Dr. Hailwa also mentioned, forest management and forest management plans are very important. And lastly, the regulatory framework need to be there, which guides us what we have to do. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. You might have a chance again just to add. Please, we would like to ask Dr. Clemens for your statement.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much, colleagues, for elaborating already so much on the concept of sustainable forest management, which is indeed a key concept for managing forests. And I think the important issue around this here is not necessarily that we need to look at every single tree, but as a whole to maintain the ecosystem forest, which is so important to maintain our entire planet. Just to give you an idea, right now 31% of the landmass around the world is actually covered with forests. That's around about 0.6 billion hectares. In Namibia alone, we have around about 7.2 or 7.3 million hectares of forest cover. But the sad news is that we've lost, just between 1990 and 2010, we've lost about 16.7% of our forest cover. And I think that is already, you know, an alarming sign. As a basic rule of thumb, wherever you find forests, or where there are forests, you also have rain. Now, if our forest cover is declining, we also run risk of having less rain in our country. And yes, indeed, it is very difficult to describe the concept of sustainable forest management, or to put it in practice rather. But at the same time, let me visualize it to you, like I've done it previously at a conference we've hosted 2 years ago. Now I've borrowed some equipment here from the Namibia Scientific Society. Now, let's assume this is the economy, the first pillar, or one of the pillars of sustainability. Then we have the pillar of the ecology, which we have here now. And last but not least, we have the social component, the social pillar. All of them, the three need to stand together and need to find a balance in order to ensure sustainability. Otherwise, the forest ecosystem, or any kind of system, won't be in balance, won't be in tune. So if I put, this is now forestry, or the forest ecosystem. If I put it here in the middle, it's balanced. But what happens if I say I push the economy, I harvest too much, I might lose forests, and what happens? The forest ecosystem collapses. Similarly, if I push the environmental agenda too much, I might actually jeopardize the social fabric and the social dimension, and jeopardize the livelihoods of the community. So we need to make sure that we do strike a balance for the future of today's generations and future generations. And I think it is also with an increased risk of climate change. I mean, 2 years ago, 1.5 years ago, when we had the worst drought in 90 years here in Namibia, actually did prove to us that we need to respond to those challenges, and that we need to find ways of improving the situation. At the end of the day, if we want to make sure that Namibians can live peacefully and sustainably also in future generations, like it is also enshrined in our Constitution in Article 95, so Article L, we need to make sure that we use our resources, but use them sustainably. And obviously, that's easier said than done. It has a lot to do with the resources available to manage those resources. My previous speaker already mentioned that we need inventories, we need management plans, but we also need people and resources to implement those. And those are some obviously bigger challenges we are facing. But at the same time, and this is also what our project now tries to address, is an increased awareness around why forests are important. And yeah, that's why we're here tonight. And I look forward now to the questions and the discussions on this aspect. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I just want to really thank our panelists for giving us a sense of what is sustainable forest management. I was listening very carefully, and I realized that there were some aspects which are coming up again and again, and I'm sure all of us are here to educate ourselves. The balance which you people are talking about, for me, it's very interesting because when you have people having different interests and how you want to keep that balance, I think that will be really a challenge for the project. And I think some other aspect, and I think what Mr. Hailwa spoke about in terms of how do you apply that in practice? Because so many times as you've said, we've got many protocols, we've got laws which are regulating to maintain that balance. But at the same time, you're dealing with people with various different interests, and therefore, in practical terms, although we do have those tools which you guys are talking about, which can probably guide us into making sure that we have the resources, we have people, we have inventories, we have monitoring aspect in JET, and then we've got management plan. I think, Dr. Clemens, it's also very, it's very awakening and very surprising to hear how much of the Namibian forest have we lost, the coverage have we lost. And many times we ignore data, and I think data really informed the danger in which we're finding ourselves. So I hope viewers and face-to-face participants here, you were able to really grasp the question of what is sustainable forest management, but would like to hear your comments. Some of you are professionals in the topic and you know what has been happening, but we want to hear from you. Either you have a question or you have a comment or a contribution to make, please speak to us. Those of you who can write on your chat box, we want to hear from you so that we can take up all your comments and your questions. I will start from our face-to-face participants just to see whether they have something to comment on. Yes, go ahead.
Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Frank Steffen. I'm the editor of Allgemeine Zeitung, and I was one of the people who wrote a lot about the forest that kept disappearing about 2 years ago. So my problem is when I listen to what everybody says, there seems to be a common denominator for me. And that there are two things that are actually common denominators. The one is the repeat use. So that's where it really comes in, value on the long run. And the second one is a management plan. So what I would like to understand is, where did we go wrong that we allowed, in this case, the Chinese, it might have been the man from the moon, where did we go wrong that we allowed people to decimate our forests in such a horrendous manner, because it was almost 2 years, and instead of first planning and then deciding how to best use it, because all of you stressed the importance to plan for sustainable management and then to apply use if it is sustainable. So my problem is not number one, I would like to understand how did we get it so wrong, and number two, what are we doing now to make sure that it doesn't happen again?
Okay. Do we have any other questions coming up from our virtual viewers? They are there. Okay. Can you scroll them down so we can hear and some of the comment?
Maybe you can read it also then to us.
Yeah, I would like to read it just now. I'm just waiting for them to. Okay. Okay, where is it starting? Fine. There's, okay, maybe starts from 603, ne? From Osonjupa region, mainly Okakarara constituency, we have been hit hard with a ban on the harvesting, usage, marketing, and sale of our forest products, which we find unfair and believe the move was politically driven. Okay, that's the one comment, which is basically asking for a response from the panelist. And then we've got another one, which came in at 611. Unsustainable utilization of forest resources, illegal harvesting of trees have been ongoing for a while in Namibia. What should be done to overcome this situation and protect the biodiversity and mitigate the climate change? Okay, let's just keep those, take those two. 612, I'll come to that later. The first question, I'm hoping that The panelists, Kamwe, are you still with us? Because I really want you to hear and for you to be able to participate and comment as one of our panelists. We don't want to exclude you. There's a question which just came up looking at why are there plans and we have not followed the plans, and where did we go wrong? And if there were plans, are we following those plans? Am I correct in that? And then there is that one from Osodonjupa, basically talking about how we have been hit hard on the ban of harvesting of our forest product, which they feel is very unfair and it's politically motivated. So he would like to have a comment on that. And the other one, what should be done to overcome this situation whereby there's illegal harvesting, which is ongoing in Namibia. Any comments from the panelists to cover those 3 questions for now? Anybody, when you have, or on any question? Yes, go ahead, Dr. Clemens.
Thank you very much. I think obviously my colleagues to my left here are much better qualified to answer most of those questions, but I think generally, you know, if we were in an ideal world, obviously, you know, we would have the resources here in Namibia to ensure that we would have regular inventories of the forest resources. And an inventory is quite simple, you know, like a supermarket owner who needs to take stock of what he has still in his shelves and whether he can supply still the consumer with the goods they need. And so a national inventory, forest inventory, looks at how much forest cover there is still, how many trees are growing in those forest areas, what type of trees, how old are those trees, and not only that, it also looks at obviously at the biomass, how much standing timber is there. That can help us then also to answer a lot of questions, not only regarding the timber as a resource, but also, for instance, the carbon storage capacity. It helps us to then look at other ecosystem services. Many of those actually are not captured in economic terms, but when you look at soil degradation, if you look at flooding, flood prevention, if you look at also as a resource for feed and fodder, and so on. So that is, I think, is crucial in order to improve the situation. So we need an inventory to begin with, and based on an inventory, then one can start looking at a management plan, which then helps, to manage the resource on the ground. And it is a very difficult task to do that. You know, coming to the rescue, or, you know, speaking to the ministry here, obviously, if you have limited resources to do so, this becomes a major challenge. Yeah. But I think, you know, the time is ripe also for the leaders in the country to take this issue more seriously and to prioritize this aspect to improve that situation.
Thank you. Any other comment from the panelists? Dr. Albertina?
Yes, just adding on what has been said earlier, I think the question on what we can do, it all lies on inventory, yes, because there is a say in forestry where they say you cannot manage if you cannot take data. If you don't know how much you have, then where would you base your management on? So I think that is one of the key things that we have to look at if we have to improve on sustainable forest management in Namibia. So from my perception, I think we have the best policies and the best legislation when it comes to sustainable forest management, because it speaks to all the aspects that are about sustainable forest management. But I think we may have gone wrong somewhere in enforcing what the legislation has provided for. So we need to go back to this, because the same legislation also has provided for us to do these inventories, for us to manage the forest according to forest management plans. And I think if we follow this, if we enforce what is in the Act, we may be better off. It may not be all perfect, but we may be better off. So we need to empower, we need to empower the directorate in terms of resources so that they can enforce what is provided for in our policies and also in our legislations. That's what I just wanted to add.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Egon? I'm calling you doctor now.
Thank you very much. I'm pleased to see one of my junior colleagues actually calling for the empowerment of the Directorate of Forestry to be able to enforce the law fully. Thank you very much for that. I think what I'm pleased to see what happened over the recent time is that is the realization or is a talk about the importance of the forest resources. Up until quite recently, when you ask even the most most senior economists being in private or government, sometimes when you talk of list the resources we have in this country that are important to our economy or to our people, forest, if it comes, maybe it must be the lowest one, if it all comes there in that list. But in many cases, it is not known at all. But at least now, to some extent, to a great extent, we are actually talking of the importance of the forest. Yeah, to start with the first question, where did we go wrong if we somehow, we know, we talk about all these good theories and positions and policies, and then all of a sudden we have been suffering about the loss of the forest resources. Yeah, the fundamental part I should say is that forest resources is just like all other natural resources or any other resources we have in the country or in the world. We haven't gone totally too wrong to have some resources are also being taken illegally or unprocedurally, but it's just that maybe the poachers or wood poachers, they might be advanced than us. They are also doing much work to see what is that they can do to penetrate to get those resources, just like diamond theft, fish theft, all those theft, all these things. It's just like that, but does not mean that the police or the system is dead. It does not mean that. The system is alive. That's why we are able to detect some of those things. Every second day, our people are catching 1 or 2 persons when they are practicing illegal operations. So it does not mean that when we are catching illegal operators, does not mean that there's no system in place to prevent that. Therefore, the system is there. We shall continue applying that system and close all the gaps or the gaps we are identifying to prevent a further illegal operation as is perceived. But I have said that these things sometimes is in the eyes of the beholder. If you go to the farmer today in Kavango, who is having a plot, and he stopped from cutting a single tree out of that, he sees that is unfairly treated. But here we say, no. If you cut those trees, you are illegally cutting the trees. But this person is also having a right to use. That's why we are talking of economic, social, and environmental aspect. We should not only look at environmental aspect, but we should also look at other aspects of the forest resources. The ban, again, the colleague in the Okakarara area, Shadunjupa area, immediately he starts with the point that no, the reason why he is stopped from cutting the wood is politically motivated. So all those things are difficult to say, yes, this is true, is perception right or is wrong. But all these are just effort to regulate what is happening there, that before we allow you to use a certain amount of wood from Ochodonjupa or from Okakarara, we need to do some things first, to put things in place. And then we discuss things with all the stakeholders so that all of us, we say, yes, we share, especially those forests in commonly owned places. So we must find a place, an agreement. How do we share the benefit? Sometimes we need to define things, and also, because if somebody comes in a Namibian commercial areas and find people harvesting wood for charcoal purposes and so on, we can justify, no, it's a bush encroachment, it's what, but somebody can say, no, this is a deforestation. And somebody says, no, it's not deforestation, it's just improving of rangeland. All these things, it depends in which view are we doing this. So as much as that, yes, there's a room for improvement in regulating the forest in the northeastern part, all these aspects of resources we have need to be addressed with that understanding.
Dr. Kamwe, any comments from you? Are you with us? Dr. Kamwe, are you with us?
Yes, I'm with you.
Okay, do you have any comments to make on the questions which were raised?
Yes, I have a few points to add.
Yes, go.
I would like to really look at the one of what has to be done in terms of reducing deforestation. So one of the important things that has to be done, it has been said in many different ways, is mainly to have aggressive law enforcement, and this law enforcement should be linked to energy. I think this is already been done, but I think there's room for upscaling that element of reducing deforestation. The second thing that I think has to be done is to really see how we can adapt the chain of custody process so that we can really take the stock or track the origin of the resource before it actually leaves the country or before it's sold on the market. So it's like we have to be able to track backwards from where the tree was felled throughout the chain, the value chains, and so forth. I think that's one of the important things that has to be done. It's called the chain of custody. Then the important one is the regular forest inventories, already alluded to by my colleagues. We have to do these inventories. I think 5 to 10 year period will be a good time period for doing these forest inventories. I think we have been constrained in recent years due to budgets and so forth, but I think forest inventory is one of the key elements in terms of reducing deforestation by knowing how much we have, and at the same time we inform our sustainable forest management process. Then I think I touched on the management plans, very important. They have to be updated. They go hand in hand with the forest inventories. Then we also have to do applied research and development in the forest areas that we have. So by doing this research and development, we'll be able to deduce the appropriate silvicultural treatments that we have to use in terms of making sure that the health and vitality of the forest resources are there. And this will actually help us to have proper forest stands. Then the other important one is the issue of access and benefit sharing mechanisms. I think that's also one of the elements that we have to look at, especially in areas which have forests under community management. So we really have to make sure that the access and benefit mechanisms are favorable to all, not only to selected members of the community. Otherwise, we are going to encourage illegal logging and so forth. Then we also have to look at the forest, to look at the synergy between forest management and other existing initiatives, just to make forests more beneficial to people instead of them deforesting. So one of the key things which I think for now is to really look at how we can tap into this RED Plus mechanism that I spoke about. Again, I hope we'll have an opportunity in the future to unpack this RED Plus mechanism to see how our communities can really benefit from it, and at the same time maintain their forest stands. However, again, it has to do with the international forces of the price of carbon and so forth. So there are so many things that we can really look at to add value to the forest, not just thinking about cutting the trees, but we can develop other opportunities, getting benefits from the forest using other means. I submit, moderator.
Okay, thank you so much for that input. While we're checking more other questions or comments coming in virtually, is there any face-to-face participants who would like to ask a question? Okay, please go ahead. Thank you, Clemens.
Thanks, Madam Moderator. My name is Philemon Kayofa. I'm working for the Directorate of Forestry. I just have one aspect which I think we need also to understand it and define it, and that is sustainable development. So we need to understand what is the relationship between sustainable development and the sustainable forest management. Because when we talk about development, it can also have effect on the sustainable forest management. So I think we need also to look at it and understand it. Thanks.
Okay, a very interesting angle. Do we have questions?
I still have a question.
Yes.
Mr. Halwa, it's obviously we can debate this until kingdom come, but my biggest issue is really the answer that I didn't hear yet is, what do we have in place that makes sure that in future we don't have a repeat of this? Are there systems which are better than before? Can we actually ensure that people don't illegally log anymore? And have we done a stock take and that sort of thing to actually come to a point where we will be able to assess whether we can actually have a sustainable use of wood?
Okay. Well, Ms. Hilo, you want to, before you comment on that, which is a direct question to you, we just want to look at Lisa. We, the indigenous people of Okakarara constituency in the rural Herero Land East, have been managing our forest and its products for over 100 years. We have evolved as time have changed. Today, we are using only 20% of our forest products over a 10-year period for fencing purposes. We farm with livestock that need vast grazing and rangeland, which is currently covered in encroaching bush and shrub. I think that's just a comment and giving us a situation, what is happening there. Okay, and then there's one from Juliet. Juliet is saying, Giving a clear definition and indicators of what is sustainable will be essential. So people still want to find out what is the term or concept of sustainable means. Also, what is sustainable in a closed area is not in Kavango forest. Sustainability has to be defined for Namibian forests and woodlands, not only by number of trees, but quality of the ecosystem. The Department of Forestry and Research should establish a clear indicator and a threshold to define sustainability in different forest, woodland ecosystems in Namibia. Okay, that's basically probably an addition. Maybe you want to comment on that. Okay, we will stop at those, and we just want to cover those two. If there's any comments from our panelists, and also the statement which was just made by Philemon, and the specific questions for Mr. Ailwa to just give us more information in terms of what is in place right now, which is mitigating and basically making sure that all of those probably illegal or any other activities which was causing problems in our forest, how are they mitigated by the ministry?
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think I should state that I think since November 28 November 2018, we called the harvesting of timber to an end. That as a result, the timber harvested before that, or most of them, they were harvested under the supervision, or great supervision of Director of Forestry. However, in a process, of course, when you give somebody 10 timber or trees to cut, he may end up cutting 12 or 13, which he can do it cleverly without being detected, or when we detect that person, we also punish that at the same time. So since then, we stopped issuing harvesting permits. Then, in also recent time, 2020, mid-2020, we also attended to the call to stop the exportation of unprocessed timber or semi-processed timber. And since then, we did not export any unprocessed timber from Namibian forest. However, we tried to promote the local processed so that people can use those timber locally, and if they are to export them, they should go there with a quite degree of processed level. As a result, if all of the legal logs we have seen passing through our port, Walvis Bay, are in transit. They are not Namibian timber. And I can tell you that up to now, we facilitated close to 300 big containers, close to 300 containers through Walvis Bay, mostly from our neighboring countries up north, Zambia, DRC, as well as Angola. And it is unfortunate that in sometimes we are not having a sign or a label that, okay, no, this is an Angolan product. Everybody seeing that is just seeing as a Namibian timber being exported. I want to put it clear that as far as we are concerned, at this point in time, we are not harvesting, we are not exporting Namibian timber. We have a quite significant number of processors who actually revived recently in Namibia, who are processing in Namibia. Yeah, the question also, whether illegal harvesting is it on or not. The question is, at this point in time, we are actually monitoring heavily, but to see or to find one incident out of your 100 visits, you may, but we have 2, 3 trees, but before they get to a scale, we detect that. And therefore, I can tell that as we speak, we don't have a overwhelmingly illegal operation taking place in Namibia. I hope I now have answered your question to some extent.
I'm sure you have done that.
Yes, please.
Mr. Clemens or Dr. Clemens?
One aspect I would like actually to add on is the issue, obviously, you know, for somebody who wants to develop his land, we're talking about in the Kavango region, the leaseholders who own the land now or have a leasehold for 99 years. And they obviously want to make a living, they want to develop the land and want to make a living simply from that and improve their livelihoods possibly as well. One of the bottlenecks we see is the fact that timber here in Namibia currently is undervalued. We're looking at, but it is actually, if you look at global markets, it's high value hardwood timber, which actually there is a big demand. Otherwise, you know, we wouldn't see timber being exported through our harbor in Walvis Bay. But don't get me sort of, you know, pinpoint me on the correct numbers, but just to give you a rough estimate. What we've seen over the past couple of years is that those businessmen who came to buy that timber bought the timber from the landowners or the leaseholders for around about 300 Namibia dollars per tree. Once processed into a log and shipped to, or transported to the harbor, the same kind of log all of a sudden was worth 4,000 Namibia dollars. Now, once it reaches actually overseas markets, there's a log which initially was worth only 300 Namibia dollars, then all of a sudden can be worth something between 20,000 up to 500,000, depending on the quality. So if we have veneer wood quality, the timber can fetch incredible prices. And as long as obviously the timber here in Namibia doesn't have the appreciation by the consumers to pay appropriate prices, depending on obviously on the quality. Obviously, you know, for the landowner, he looks probably at other activities to use the land than forests. But as any farmer would know, diversification is key. So you should be able to do different things on the land you manage. And so agriculture should have a place, forestry should have a place for economic reasons, but also obviously for ecological reasons and social reasons as well. So I think the diversification is key, and the appreciation for the value addition. And again, my call to the government and the political decision makers would be to support the development of a value chain in this context, so that we can use our resources, can process them, and then can sell already processed goods to the international markets and improve the development for Namibia overall.
I agree. Dr. Kamwe, are you there? Would you want to comment on some of the questions which just came to us? I think there was a comment by Philemon looking at sustainable development vis-a-vis sustainable forest management and how those two relate to one another. Dr. Kamwe, are you with us?
Yes, Moderator, I'm with you.
Okay.
I think I'll just go straight to just comment on Mr. Gayofa's input.
Okay.
So you'll find that the importance of forest in helping to achieve global sustainable development has been largely acknowledged by the SDGs, which are already existing, as well as the Paris Agreement. This is the agreement which relates to all elements of climate change. So you see that sustainable development is also within those ones, the SDGs and the Paris Agreement. All these, they speak to the same thing of sustainable development, making sure that the livelihoods of people are not impacted in any way and so forth. That's why you always find these buzzwords like sustainable, they are always bouncing left and right, but they are also there. You find that integrating forests and trees into sustainable development strategies will require effective partnership and society engagement. So you can't do these things in isolation. There have to be a synergy between them. The clear legal frameworks and coherent policy measures that balance the stakeholder interests are part of the enabling environment which is needed in terms of harmonizing or creating synergies between these two terminologies. We also find that evidence-based forest policy and programs actually enhances a balanced delivery of environmental and socioeconomic benefits from forests and trees. And this can actually harness the contribution of the forest sector, so the contribution from the forest sector to the achievement of several SDGs. So again, you can see these words are intertwined. Again, the climate change perspective comes in play in terms of the Paris Agreement. So really, the key message from what I've just said now is just that we require effective partnership in terms of really creating the synergy between these two elements that you indicated. And it's actually a challenge now because they are treated separate. I submit.
Thank you so much. Let's see again whether we've got more either comments or questions or statement coming from our viewers. We've got Miriam. To Miriam, we must do due diligence. Don't allow all Namibia's forests to be cut for business purposes. If government is so keen on only putting up moratoriums for the poor, previously disadvantaged Namibian farmers that harvested these forests for years and still managing this great treasure. Go back to that question, please. I just want to just get the gist of what Miriam is trying, whether it's a comment or a question. I just want to read it again. We must do due diligence. Don't allow all Namibia's forests to be cut for business purposes, okay? If government is so keen on only putting up moratoriums for the poor, previously disadvantaged Namibian farmers that harvested these forests for years and still managing this great treasure. So basically, if I hear the question correctly, is basically you spoke about the moratoriums which are put into place and whether or not are they applying also to Namibians, though especially those who are called the previously disadvantaged Namibian farmers. And that's basically, I think, the angle Miriam wants to find out. And 6:21 p.m., we had Erika asking, dear participant, please be so kind and take part. Oh, sorry. Okay, that's just a request. Which one? How effective are these policy implementations? Yeah, that's the one I want to go to Arthur. I'm going there now. How effective are these policy implementation in Zambia and Kavango forest? Oh, in Zambezi. What did I say, Zambia? Oh, forgive me. Zambezi and Kavango forested areas as timber species are being illegally harvested. How effective are these policy implementation, obviously to mitigate the harvesting or the illegal harvesting of the timber? And then Peke, clear definition on what is a forest and what is not are needed. Okay, what is a forest and what is not a forest? That definition is needed. Peke is emphasizing because our vegetation is quite diversified, thus blanket regulations may not be helpful in the long run. Also strongly supporting the notion to have updated inventories. Can I have comments on those? Anyone face-to-face has a comment or a question to ask? Okay, for now we're concentrating on more comments coming through online, virtually. Can I just have the panelists response to those? I think one is talking about the moratorium which has been put by the ministry, and maybe the ministry people can specifically respond on that. Why is it done to the previously disadvantaged Namibians, farmers? And I think Peke wants to make sure that this project is also defining what is forest and what is not forest, so that because people are having a different experience and different definition of the way they see how forest is. And I think now that the question has been asked, I'm also thinking that where I live in the north, that is not forest, but maybe it's forest. So I think it's a fair question to ask. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Let me first talk about the moratorium. Yes, as Mr. Hailwa alluded to, there was a moratorium sometime toward the end of 2018. Yeah, this is one option. A question was said, what can we do? So there are many options that we can do. A moratorium is one of the options, but each option that you come up with may have advantages and disadvantages. So what the person on the virtual platform from Okakarara speaking about, what about the indigenous people who have been managing this forest for ages, and they perceive it is working well. So when we are putting up moratorium, what I want to say is that we must look at the advantages and disadvantages. They work very well when a certain species, for example, is threatened. Then we don't have an option, we can just put up a ban. Yeah, but when there are species which are not threatened, and when there are other areas which maybe the problem is not in that area, so maybe we have to have a differentiated approach to the different areas, to the different species, and then we see what other options do we have for other areas and for other species. So the government has done a very good thing to put up a moratorium, and I assume in the meantime we are looking at the different options that we can look at for the different areas and also for the different species, because Mr. Kayofa has mentioned sustainable development. That concept was brought up in the sense that it's not just about conservation, ban and what, but we must also use these resources. Yeah, so we must see the best ways to use these resources. It's on us, the expertise, the officials in Directorate of Forestry, the academicians. We need to come up with better options that work for different people, because a ban is not a good thing for everybody and for every species. So that is just my take on a moratorium. I wanted to also respond to, I think one of the questions was talking about indicators. What are the indicators that we are now sustainable forest management is achieved? I think, I'm not sure if Mr. Hailwa could maybe also highlight the caller and about we had indicators for sustainable forest management, if I'm not mistaken, in the country. I'm not very sure how far we have gone with that, but what I know is that to indicate that now we are sustainable, we look at those many pillars. So is biodiversity okay? Do we have biodiversity okay? Are we allowing the water purification in this forest to work perfect? Are we, is soil erosion, is it occurring in our forest or not? So those are the indicators that sustainable forest management is taking place. Are we taking stock of what we have? So if we are not, then the indicators are showing that there is a lot that we need to do. So there are many things that we need to look at, and most of them aligned to the elements which has been, I think they have been pointed out by the UN Forest Forum. So those indicators stemmed from there.
Okay.
They are complex and they are difficult to achieve. Yeah, but that is what we are talking about. Thank you.
Dr. Clemens, what is a forest?
Very briefly on that, I'm sure, I mean, the Forestry Act already alluded to that, what is considered a forest, and there are numerous definitions also, what is a forest. And obviously, you know, from a European context, a Central European forest looks very different to a Namibian one. But even if you look at, let's say, KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa forest, there looks very different to what we consider forest here. And obviously that depends, for instance, on what is the forest cover in terms of percentage. Would be an easy approach to look at that. You know, if you can say 10% or 15 or 20% of your land is covered with a tree and there's forest cover, you could call it a forest. Otherwise than that, could be like a savanna with a few trees on it, a few trees in between. So those are ways to do that. But obviously that the FAO also has defined that, and otherwise we wouldn't be able to say that the forest cover has declined 16.8% between 1990 and 2010 if there wasn't a definition for that.
Okay, Mr. Ilwa, what is Namibian forest? What aspect do we look at to define a Namibian forest?
Thank you. Earlier on, I stated that we are guided by some international treaties and forum and agreements. The forum, UN Forum on Forestry actually is trying to call to a conservation or sustainable forest management of all types of forests. As he attempted to explain those examples, when we are in Iran, in the Middle East there, where it's very dry, there might not be enough long trees and long woody plants. They still have a department responsible for forest resources. We go to Lesotho, we go to Namibia. We cannot just say, no, we are not having gifted resources like in DRC, so therefore we have no forest. So what is critical actually is to bring the resources, the woody resources, under control or under regulatory mechanism, so that whatever we do with those resources, we are not doing it without any order. And therefore, the forest law excuse me, is actually trying to bring the order to the management of all types of vegetation in Namibia. We know the classification of vegetation in Namibia, apart from the desert. We know savannas, we know woodland, we know what. All those areas, they are categorized as all our Namibian forests. Therefore, in some cases, people want to define things otherwise so that it's convenient for their interest. And they think that, no, this forest law is too much harsh to us. Leave us alone here. This wood in this area is not forest. So don't come in. So all those things. But all in all, what we are talking about is a systematical order to make use of the resources in a sustainable manner. Yeah, I believe we are moving towards the end. I think I can assure my colleagues that yes, the policies, it was stated earlier, the laws are fairly okay. Yes, it's a challenge it's a challenge, like, as I said, like any other sectors, to have 100% resources that enable you to fulfill all what you want to do. But with the thorough consultations of different stakeholders, this moratorium we put together in place today is to enable us to have a breathing space so that we can have a thorough consultation and to count or recount what, in actual fact, all these things we have counted in some cases, or in many cases. And that therefore, it is critical for us to emphasize and put more emphasis and more resources on counting the forest inventories and determine what is that we have. And then we agree that, yes, what is that we want to have? Is it economic product? Is it environmental? What is what? So what is that can actually have a balance for all this? And that is where we are going to meet at the end of the day. Ladies and gentlemen, what I want to remind the nation is that forest resources, you like it or not, is the most important natural resources we can have on earth. You can talk of all those stones, you can talk of whatever other things is important, oil and what, but forest resources are the resources that ever available to the people for their essential needs for now and forever. And therefore, Amen. We should take care of them. Hallelujah.
Okay. I've just been informed we've got so many other questions. I'm aware of the time, and I just want us to go a little bit over time. Mr. Aula, are you still with us?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, let's just have the questions again. Dr. Kamwe, are you with us?
Yes, I'm with you, and I wanted to respond quickly.
Yeah, go ahead.
On the definition of forest. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, in terms of the definition of forests, we have had a number of interactions, engagement over the years to fit that definition for our country. And I think it's a good question which Peke asked. And in the reporting that we always do, in terms of the multilateral environmental agreements and so forth, the climate change issues, the definition that is standing at the moment is that the forest in Namibia is the length which spans more than half a hectare, and that should contain trees which are higher than 5 meters, and the canopy cover of more than 10%. Mm-hmm. So these are the thresholds that we look at to define what the forest is in terms of the forest that we have in this country.
Thank you for those.
Thank you very much.
Okay, can we have all the other questions up which are coming in from our visual participants? Lisa, or is it Petrus, from Joseph Petrus. What do you think one should do when they find someone caused damage to a forest? The second one from Lisa. 75% of the Namibian inhabitants are living under poor standards. The forest resources play a major role in the livelihood of our people as a developing country, where most of our people are either living in the rural poor areas or are just unemployed. Okay, so it's just a comment, and probably it wants the panelists to respond on that. This is basically where we're looking at how do we strike the balance between those three components, the ecological aspect, the economical aspect, and the socio aspect. Obviously, the person is looking at, if you have 75% people who are poor, how can you still want to have a balance with that, because people want to eat? That's now from Lisa. Let's hear what Claudia has to say. Claudia says, to comment or add on to Joseph Petrus' question, is there a hotline one can call or use to notify the authorities or relevant authorities of mismanagement or illegal harvesting? Okay, that's probably also linked to the question there above. And then Tukale says, Namibian forests are chopped down to produce charcoal to be exported to foreign countries like the US, is a market for Namibia. But then this will lead to deforestation and local inhabitants that depends, I think, on the resources from the forest will gain nothing. Mr. Elroy, did you catch that? Because it's very, very important. Okay, and then we've got Lisa. Lisa wants to know, keeping a balance to the two objectives of the National Forest Policy, which is the conservation and the socio-economic development. Development is of vital importance in combating both deforestation and rural poverty. This forest is our livelihood. Okay, and then we've got Juliet. I hope you guys are noting because we're moving to cover most of them. Juliet is saying, on forest resources used for community benefits, timber is not the only resources in Namibia forest. There are a wealth of other resources that can be tapped into sustainably and required further attention, like honey, thatch grass, wild fruits, marquetti, hibiscus, medical plants, plant-based oils for cosmetics. How do we value these resources better and develop sustainable markets that benefit both local communities and forest ecosystem? I think Dr. Clemens, you were speaking about the whole value chain kind of thing, and also maybe looking at what is happening now when it comes to diversifying some of these benefits and see whether there is value addition taking place in Namibia. Andre, I think I'm going up to this one and then we comment and then we go to the last ones. Andre is asking or commenting, all of Namibia forestry resources need to be value added in Namibia by Namibians. What is the definition of value add? To lessen the impact on the forest, apart from good forest management, nothing below Customs Tariff Code 4407, sawn timber planks of maximum thickness of 55 millimeters. Anything below 4407, that is raw blocks, which is those 4403, should not be allowed to be exported. Only those companies value adding from Custom Tariff Code 4408 and above should be allowed to export 4407. Okay, I'm just reading so nicely, but I've got no clue what the 447 are. This results in less impact on the forest, higher monetary values for less forest utilization. So those of you, especially part of our panelists who've got information in terms of what this code means, please inform us what the participants wants to know and just tell us exactly why he's making a difference between the various codes and some of the codes where he's saying they should not be allowed to leave the country, and certain codes which need to be allowed to leave the country. He's talking about the thickness of the timbers. Yes, we stop here for these questions. I just want to go with you first. Kamwe, do you have comments on those questions? Dr. Kamwe, are you with us?
Yes, I'm with you. I think not at this stage. I think most of them were good comments, but I think some of the questions may be addressed by the colleagues from the
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody wants to start?
Yes, you want to.
Okay.
Thank you. One of the comments is talking about how can we value other products that are coming from the forest, so that we can, other than timber, so that we can better benefit from our forest. Yes, this is a difficult question, but I have maybe a simple response. Yes, the value of the product, it's determined by the market demand. If there are people out there who want very much your product, then yeah, then your product can have value. So a simple answer there, I think we need to establish a value chain which are sustainable, because of course the market can determine the value, but we need also all of us to participate on determining that value. We don't want the buyers only dictating the price of our product, but we want at least the producers of these products to also have some kind of bargaining power to influence the pricing of these products. So we need sustainable value chains for different of these products that we have from the product. And the value chain is sustainable if the benefit sharing there is okay. So we don't want a product that is going out of Namibia, like what Clemens was talking about. The value of the wood from Namibia is 100, but the moment it crosses the border, it becomes 500,000 and what. Then someone out there is going to benefit so much, and the people who are living in the proximity of the resource are not getting anything. So I think we need sustainable value chains in the sense that all the people are getting something out of that. The producer who is living in the forest should get something, but also then the consumer or the traders, because the chain consists of different people that are getting something out of that, the processor and the manufacturer and so on. So a chain needs to be sustainable, and this needs to be supported by government policies and so on, so that we can establish such value chains. Yeah, thank you.
Does that aspect answer the question of one of the participants who was saying that if we have the majority of Namibians who are poor, and you want to maintain that balance, those three pillars balance, how do you strike that balance if people are saying, look, why would I care about the ecological aspect or the cultural aspect? People need to eat. And I think that you can see the tension between the two. And I'm just wondering to find out whether those kind of initiatives, do they answer to people who are concerned about people who need to get the direct benefit from the forest? I'm not asking you directly, but I'm just kind of throwing it in for you to be aware of that question, which is also wanting to know, how do you deal with the majority of the people who are poor while you want to strike the balance?
Yes, this majority of people who are poor, if they are not happy with an unsustainable value chain, somewhere the balance is going to collapse. Yes. Then we all lose. So it's better we keep the balance, then we can all continuously, with time, benefit from the forest. Okay. Because if someone is not happy, then that thing is not going to last long.
Okay. Dr. Mr. Laibo.
Thank you. Earlier, when we started our discussions here, I stated that the definition of sustainable forest management is not very complicated in theory. It's quite common sense. It's just to say, eat small today so that you can eat forever. Don't eat everything away. But the challenge is how to achieve that. Practically. That practical, yeah. And most of the questions we see here are trying to challenge that practical applications. How do we apply now all those theories we talk about here to achieve that balance? Yeah. She talked about multiple benefits, because somebody say, don't worry much about timber. Also, there are also some benefit in the forest. Exactly. Yeah, and all those things can only become something if there's a demand thereof. So, and also, I should add, if us who know the value of those products, we can also properly expose it. Talk about the medicinal plant. Yeah. If somebody go crazy and they go to one practitioner, the herbalist or traditional healer, he just go to the forest and pick one root, then just hit you like this. And from there you say, people are saying I'm mad. I'm not mad. Yeah, but when you come here, you come in chain. But a given plant you are just given, and then you can be right. So those are the things we want to talk more about, so that we acknowledge those people who knows the knowledge of those plants. Okay. And the fruit, you talk all those things you have there. Okay. But there are a number of questions now that if a culprit, now if you find somebody practicing this, what is a punishment?
Is there a hotline?
Yes, that's also one of them. But there's a punishment. The law provides guidelines. Mm-hmm. In addition to some specific figures in terms of money or imprisonment, there's also room for our prosecutors to define and defend that problem so that the judge can provide appropriate punishment. In many cases, our system do not give a harsh punishment that send people away from repeating the same mistake or offense. Because the money that these people are making out of the forest is far more than this punishment you are given. And therefore, it is up to us as officials and prosecutors to define and defend that, no, this is a serious offense, therefore a person must be punished properly. The punishments are there. And then the 75% of people are poor, and now you deny them from using the resources. Why are you doing that? Colleagues, as much as you can view that problem in that light, you can also have the opposite. That if we say the commercial practitioners, the businessmen can just get into a Kakarara area and to go and harvest as much as they want wood to harvest it for charcoal or for firewood to sell, they are going to leave the people there more in poverty than before. Because people used to just walk to collect their firewood for their daily need. But if you apply all these commercial activities without proper control, these resources are going to be finished, and people are going to be left more and more in poverty. Okay. In Kavango there, people are in need of some logs to produce their canoes, their sledges, their something to use on their daily basis. Yeah. But the moment you just allow operations without proper control, definitely we are going to leave people more in poverty, more than what we are thinking now. Because people are saying now, when you stop them from doing this, you want them to be poor and poor. Again, charcoal leading to deforestation. Yeah. Yes, I alluded already to this point, that these things depend on the eyes of the beholder, and the defensive you can give why you are practicing this. But all on this, we just need a balance. When we are producing charcoal, we must not convert our woody covered land into a desert. That we must be careful on that. That is a fact. That's why charcoal should not blind us to just to say, no, we make money and we clear everything. Exactly. So therefore, value addition is actually when you convert raw materials to something which is better than before. If you talk of planks, he has been talking about sizes of planks and what wood there. It's difficult to say this is the final product in terms of planks. Because somebody say, no, I want a plank of this size to go and come up with my cupboard, whatever, of this type. So that planks can be of the final product. But all this depend. That's why we come up with those 55 or 50 to 10 centimeter in thickness. We can say, no, this is a fair product as value added as compared to a block of 20 centimeter or a raw log, untouched log. All those things, you add value. Because from the raw round log to planks, the planks are costing better prices than the raw. And the planks converted into desk like this or a chair, the chair costs better price than as it was. So therefore, we should try to convert the raw materials into a better value addition. So, ladies and gentlemen,
what's the hotline? If somebody
hotline, currently, we are not very much advanced to that extent, but what I can tell you, in every region, we have a forestry office. Every region, we have a forestry office. And the moment you report your case, which you suspect as illegal operation, we should attend to it. Police officials, our NAMPOL, they are responsible for implementation of all laws, including the forest one. Once you tell them, they will actually call that person to order. So therefore, we can have a book, a telephone book. You find the Minister of, as we used to be under agriculture, forest is still under agriculture, but if you call also Minister of Environment, Tourism, Forest and Tourism, they will tell you, no, the right person to respond to this is this one. Okay. So we can always help you to come and attend to suspected illegal operation. I thank you.
Dr. Clemens, should we go on, or do you wanted to make a comment?
I think we can move
okay. Yeah, we're running out of time because my time, which I wanted us to close, is coming nearer. Can we quickly just have the last questions to see how many are there?
We never finish.
Can you just count how many there are? Because, is it the last one? Oh, by Leroy. Oh, nice. Thank you for that comment, Andre. I agree that the best way forward for value addition, job creation, and conservation for benefits of all interested and affected parties. Okay, basically he's just saying he's very happy about that.
Perfect.
Okay. God, we have come to the end of our discussion. It's really been informative and really setting the bar very higher in terms of what is expected as we're going forward with those series of discussion we plan to have under this project. And I think surely many people now understand what is sustainable forest management, although we might not have probably done justice to every little questions, but we're hoping that this is a continuous dialogue which is going on. Some of these questions might come up again, but I think the most important thing is to really raise awareness for people to understand those balancing factors which are playing a role in this whole ecosystem or economic benefit and all the other aspects which need to be considered. But I think Namibians are looking forward to hearing from the project and to learn more how we can really conserve our forests, and we now understand the importance of the forest. And I just want to take this opportunity to thank our panelists. You guys have been doing a good job to respond to most of the questions, if it's not all of them. And I'm just hoping that you will be available to the project to really support based on your experience and your knowledge in the field, because we need factual information. We need to really rely on data to be able to make recommendations in terms of how the way forward is. We've got two more aspects to cover before we close formally. One of them is me asking all our viewers to do an evaluation. Are they able to log on to the evaluation page link? Viewers all over there, you can hear me. I would like you to log on the link which has been provided by the implementing partners to really give us your comment on how this dialogue has gone. It's very important for the implementers and the organizers to understand what they need to improve to make this dialogue really relevant and to have more people logging in and partaking in this dialogue, because we have that pillar which is talking about having discussions to improve SFM, because it's very, very important to have that multi-stakeholder dialogue going on for us to really acquaint ourselves how to have an appreciation and to acknowledge and to appreciate the forest where we are living. The link is provided, but I think for the participants who are here, I would like to give you a hard copy. Just give to everybody. It's just a one-pager. sorry. It's just a one-pager. Please take a few minutes with your pen and give us your comment. It's important for the organizers to really get your comment and to see how they can do things better. I hope our viewers are logging on and they are giving us their comments on how this dialogue went, because we need that. While you are doing that, when you're done, just leave it at your chair or on the floor next to your chair. We will pick it up later. I just want to give you a few minutes to do that while Dr. Schneider is preparing to come forward and giving us his final, there is the final word of thanks.
Thank you, Dofi. It's for me to say thank you after a very lively evening, interesting evening. Firstly, I'd like to thank the EU for supporting this 3-year project initiative, which was launched 2 weeks ago. Secondly, of course, all our panelists who accepted our invitation this afternoon and making time available, Mr. Haulwa and Dr. Kamwi, as well as former colleague of mine, Dr. Ndainoma, whom I know for many years. Both institutions of higher learning are represented. I'm very glad this has happened. Your participation and engagement are very important to us, and we value your time and professional input. I acknowledge the great support from the Namibia Scientific Society in making available their premises for this event here today. Thank you, Mrs. Fritsche, and your team. I saw her earlier. I think she must be still here. A big thank you to you, Dofi Namalambo. We also come a long way together for moderating this event. It's always a great pleasure to witness your professionalism in maintaining proceedings to benefit everybody. Thank you to the technical team and all participants, including the media, who are linked up via various information sharing platforms. We are planning, as you've heard, more events on the subject, and we look forward to your constant participation. Thank you, and have a safe journey back and a lovely evening.
We hereby close the event officially.